Good morning, Richard Calhoun, Creekside Realty, real estate broker here in the Silicon Valley for the last 40 years. We're here today to discuss the real estate market week number 42. We will come back to these URLs in a little bit. What we're going to be looking at is Bay Area data, single family homes, 4 counties, Santa Clara County, Alameda County, Contra Costa County, San Mateo County. We're going to be using a 5-week period, and we're going to be using an 8-year reference period of 2014 through 2021. This is the first slide. It's the most important slide. It's DUI. DUI is how a theoretical number, how long it would take to sell all the existing homes that are on the market with no new listings coming on the marketplace. It basically tells you the speed of the marketplace. The lower the number, the faster the marketplace. Down here at the peak of 2021, basically we were selling out the entire marketplace in something like 20 days. I consider anything from 40 days and below to be a seller's marketplace, which is why it's shaded red. Anything above 80 days is to be considered a buyer's marketplace, a cool marketplace, which is why it's shaded ice blue. You can see on the right-hand side of the graphs here, the DUI has been increasing for all 4 counties. Santa Clara County is doing the best at somewhere around 47 days of unsold inventory, followed by Alameda County at somewhere around 51 days. And then you have San Mateo County and Contra Costa County very close together at something like 62 days. This is the same data set going back to 2014. Moving on to the magnitude of overbidding. This is how much buyers on average are overbidding the seller's asking price. And you can see that Alameda County got all the way up to 119%. All 4 counties right now are very close to 100%. Santa Clara County is the lowest at about 99.5%. You can see the rapid decrease of this benchmark. This started to come down sometime right around April the 1st. April the 1st is when the escrows closed. So those were transactions that were mostly negotiated in latter half of February and March. Same data set going back to 2014. Now we're looking at the overbid distribution each week, and we'll look at this slide again in a little bit more detail later. Solid lines are the most recent lines, the dashed lines are the second most recent, and the dotted lines are the oldest lines. The dashed line red up here at the top is the best week we ever had, which was basically April 12th, 2022. And the worst line we ever had down here was November 30th, 2001, shortly after the World Trade Center. And again, remember, there's a 35-day roughly lag time, 5-week lag time to get escrows to close. So the worst overbidding is about 5 weeks after the worst market. The best is about 5 weeks after the best marketplace. So you can see the oldest data was basically the best, then the next oldest was getting worse, and then finally we're down here and all the solid lines are very close together, which is telling you that you basically at a plateau. The other thing, as you start getting the graph line, the purple lines, the dashed lines, leaving the horizontal 100% axis, the closer that gets to 33%, the harder it is to continue to decrease. It's not a linear scale, so the decrease from this point to this point is less than the same increment to here and the same increment here. So just by the sheer nature of it, the prices get closer together, the overbidding gets closer together. And the reason for that's fairly simple. Sellers will lower their asking price when they're not getting offers. The price goes up much above 100% much more easily than it goes below 100%. This is looking at the median sold price. You can see all 4 counties had a peak earlier this year and they're net down. Here's adding in the horizontal line so you can come back and see that we're roughly equal to our prices in April of 2021. We've lost all the appreciation in 2022 and most of the appreciation in 2021. This is the actual raw numbers for each of the counties broken out. So you have single family homes on the left, you have condos and townhouses on the right. Just some of the key data points, the number of active listings that are on the marketplace, the number of offers accepted. Here's the DUI. You can see the DUI is positive this week over last week. By positive, that means increasing, which is a slowing marketplace. So all the counties have slowed from last week into this week. And then you get down into the frequency of overbidding, basically somewhere in the high 30s to low 40s. The highest is San Mateo County at 48%. Overall, it's at 43. The lowest that I'm seeing is 35% in Contra Costa. So there is quite a bit of range. And then the average overbid goes from anywhere from 104%, which which is a little surprising in Alameda County. Most of them are down around 100%. And I suspect just seeing this, there's probably a listing or two in Alameda County where the sale price got reported by like at 510 million instead of 510,000 that I missed. That brings up your average and not your median, because notice how your median is right in line with everybody else. So I bet you this 104% could be a bad data spot. It's a little hidden because the frequency of overbidding would not be impacted by only 1 or 2 data points, and is also doing the best in Alameda County. So I'll look into that for next week a little bit more. Then you have the 10 percentile, the 50 percentile, and the 90 percentile pricing. So 80% of the homes are between the two black numbers, and the median that most people follow is the green number. And then the appreciation over the entire calendar year of 2020 is shown down here. So we're still up, significantly, somewhere in the teens for most of the counties from 2020. Having a 10% per year appreciation is pretty good, unless you go back and realize that we were at 50% appreciation, and so you went from 0 up to 50% appreciation, and now you're back down to 20, and that's where it gets a little more depressing. So with that, we'll go over the root URLs real quickly. If you want to join the presentation live on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, you use this screen plus the year 2022. If you want to get to the archives on YouTube, you just use the green URL. If you want to get the handout, which is not posted, and I am going to try to make a couple more corrections, so it'll be probably mid-afternoon before it gets posted. You add in the letter H, 2022, 10 for October 10, and then the day, which is the 22nd, so 22, and that gets you to the handout or a specific presentation. Do I have any questions from anybody? Not seeing anyone unmute themselves, I will proceed. Now what we're looking at is the DUI, the number of offers, and the number of active listings, and I'm going to talk about them at one at a time. The bold line is the DUI. That's the single biggest indicator, and that you read off the left-hand axis. So this is all 4 counties, single family homes only. And you can see that we're somewhere right here around 58 days of unsold inventory. We were a little bit lower last week, a little bit lower than this week 2 weeks ago, but higher than last week. Last week was an improvement for whatever reason. But you can see that earlier this year, we were very aggressive in the teens, which is basically unheard of, as you can see. The only time we've been in the teens has basically been in 2021 and in 2022. But then starting at the beginning of April, the DUI started to climb rapidly from somewhere around, say, 16 days of unsold inventory up here at about 56 days, improved nicely to about 45 days, and now we're deteriorating again. And this improvement here was actually noticeable in the marketplace. Moving on to offers, and I'm doing it in the order of importance. DUI is the most important indicator. Offers is fairly important. Screen with the bold number of offers accepted. So you can see we went down to the end of the year, came up. Normally you would have expected it to continue to go up and level off and then start declining about this time. But instead, we started this decrease right around April the 9th. It rolled over much earlier and then started coming down, slight improvement, and now we're deteriorating again. And again, if you come back here to basically the time frame we are in, normally this is the time of the year you start seeing the annual cycle for the end of the year holidays. So the decrease here in the number of offers isn't that significant. You have to start comparing this to what it normally does. And now what we're looking at is the active listings. Active listings is the least important out of the 3, even though it's the same impact theoretically, mathematically. Active listings tend to be fairly constant. Sellers will look at what's on the marketplace, and if there's a lot of inventory, then sellers start coming on the market at a slower rate. There's a lot of voluntary sellers that do not have to sell. So you can see inventory was at the least at January of this year, and it basically just started climbing up through about the middle of April, and then from the middle of April to the middle of July, it started to increase even more rapidly, and then basically around the middle of July, it decreased for the first time, and then we're sort of at this plateau. We're sort of having the same number of active listings. We're basically at about the same level we were in 2019. So those are the 3 components that make up what I really focus my efforts on figuring out what the market's doing, with DUI being the most significant. Same data set of all three going back to 2014. And now we're going on comparing DUI, the purple line, to where you'd expect it to be. So the median, which is where you'd expect it to be, is the thin black line. The blue line is the 90 percentile, which turns out to be the second worst year. And the red line down at the bottom is the second best year. So you can see we were beating the second best year in 2021. We were basically having the best year. And that was the case all the way through April of 2022. And then very rapidly, it started to climb and got to the second best year, very rapidly continued to climb, got to the median, continued to climb and got to the second worst year, continued to climb. And basically, we're at the last year out of the last 8 years. Then you can see the improvement. We got back to the median and things were looking okay for a couple weeks. And now we've climbed back up and we're above the second worst year. And we're not including this year. So this is actually now could be the first, it could either be the worst or the second worst year since 2014. This same data set going back to 2014. Now we're looking at Delta DUI. Delta DUI is where I take the DUI for the given day. So this is October 22nd, and I subtract off the median DUI for the same day for the past 8 years. So I'm taking DUI from October 22nd, the week ending October 22nd, last night at midnight, actually, comparing that to the week ending the 22nd of midnight in 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, and then subtracting it. And so the DUI now is higher than that median by about 15 days. So that means the market is slower now than it typically has been over those last 8 years for this time of the year. This is the same data set going back to 2014. So you can see the big COVID impact. You can see the big slowdown earlier this year and the significant improvement that I talked about, and then slowing back down. Now what you're looking at is DUI for each county. So you can pick which county you're interested in. So Santa Clara County is the blue line down here. It's doing the best. It's somewhere around 46 days unsold inventory. Alameda County is second best up here, somewhere around 52. And then the Contra Costa County are doing roughly the same at 62 days each. Same data set going back to 2014. Moving on to the number of offers accepted for each of the 4 counties. And here you got to be a little careful because you're looking at offers reported as of midnight last night. Some agents are going to report a transaction that occurred on Friday, today, tomorrow, and those will be late reports. So this last data point here is always going to be low on the purple line, but you can see that even the median is tending to drop off because we're starting to get a little bit impacted now by the end of the year holidays. We're starting to get into Halloween, which, believe it or not, is a holiday that impacts data to some degree and starting to impact data more. You have to take it with a grain of salt, but if you just come back 1 week, then you have fairly accurate data, and you can see the whole trend that I've talked about. Offers came up, they rolled over, they came down. We were way below where you'd expect it to be. The blue is the lowest you'd expect, the black is what you'd expect, and the red is the hottest you'd expect. And you can see we're selling way fewer homes right now than you'd expect to be selling for this time of the year. Same data set going back to 2014. Now we're looking at percentage of offers, and this is the percentage of each county. So San Mateo County is a much smaller county, so it only makes up about 12% of the 4 counties that I'm following when I'm calling Bay Area data. Then Santa Clara County is right now the next with the number of offers. Then Contra Costa County and Alameda County is the biggest percentage. So it just gives you an idea of the market makeup. And one of the things that actually jumped out to me was here at the end of the year, Contra Costa County for 2020 and 2022 became a larger percentage of the marketplace than it historically has been. What does that mean? It means that Contra Costa County for those 2 years, for whatever reason, did not slow down proportionate to the other 3 counties, and therefore became a larger percentage of the total marketplace. Same data set going back to 2014. Here's the number of offers accepted, just pure raw count. You can see that San Mateo County is the smallest, then Santa Clara County, then Contra Costa, and then Alameda County. So I'm just presenting the same data in different ways in case there's a set of data that makes more sense. Here's the same data set going back to 2014. Now we're looking at active inventory. We're looking at it for all 4 counties, the purple line, and you can see that earlier this year we had a shortage. We were below the black black line. We were even below the red line, the lowest you'd expect to have. Then you can see we came up, we crossed over, we had more inventory than you expect, rolled over, and now we're actually below. Why are we below the median level of inventory expected? Sellers are starting to adjust their plans. They're starting to realize the market isn't what it used to be, so they're holding off. So we're actually having fewer inventory, even though we're having even fewer offers accepted. There's a shortage of inventory from a historical point of view, but the shortage of buyers is bigger, which is why DUI is increasing. Same data set going back to 2014. Now, same concept where now you're looking at percentage, and you'll notice that Contra Costa County in the orange or in the gray, and Alameda County in the orange are the same line before about July 22nd or something like that. That's because I couldn't find a reliable source for Contra Costa County, so I set it equal to Alameda County. But now that I'm maintaining my own data set, you can see there is a difference, but it's the closest data that I have. So it's the best representation I can have. And you can see that there is some fluctuation. Santa Clara County had the largest number of active listings for a while, and then Contra Costa County or Alameda, the combination, outbid Santa Clara County. Santa Clara County was having a severe shortage of single-family homes during the boom years that we just went through. And here's the same data set on a percentage basis. And going back to 2014, actually that was percentage, that's percentage. Now we're looking at delta. So this is where we're just looking at the delta, the active listings for the given day minus the median. So basically we had a surplus of inventory right around July 1st. We're now around September 15th. We're having a shortage around here that's continuing. You can see the severe shortage down here last year when there was hard to find inventory. And you also can see at the end of the year, the number of raw count goes down even compared to the median. So the market was disappearing more than normal at the end of the year holidays. Because if you were having an absolute normal year, you'd be right on the horizontal black line. It's interesting that we had less inventory the whole time, but then the end of the year holidays, we even had less inventory. Same data set going back to 2014. Here is the magnitude of overbidding. This graph's a little bit different. The outer two lines are basically what I'm calling my artificial maximums and my artificial minimums. I get those by looking at data set 2.5% in. The reason for that is if you have someone come in and report a listing incorrectly as $510,000 or $510 million, that really impacts your magnitude of overbidding. So I'm essentially eliminating those bad data points. And then you have the 10 percentile coming in on the gray lines. So 80% of the homes are selling between these two numbers. And what those numbers are is something like 94.5% to something like 110.5%. So call it 110% to 94%. 80% of the homes are selling between those two numbers. Then if you look at the green lines, the solid green lines, so lighter green lines, that's the 25 percentile and the 75 percentile. So 50% of the homes sell between 96 percentile and about 104 percentile. The median is a solid dark green line, which is right now selling exactly at the seller's asking price, which is why I typically follow the average. If I was following the median, we wouldn't get any indication of what the market was doing during this period of time when you're right on the horizontal line at 100%. And it's going to be there, in theory, a fair amount of time. The dotted average is not going to spend very much time at all on the average line. And you can see that the median was on the 100% line all through this period, again through here, and now again here. So 3 extended periods where the average has never been at 100%. That's why I follow average, even though I would harp that median is typically a better indicator. There's a reason for the shift. So this gives you a distribution overview. Here's the same data set going back to 2014. Now we're looking at the delta magnitude of overbidding. So this is the difference between where you'd expect it to be and where it actually was. So the magnitude of overbidding was 11% higher than you'd expect it to be basically on April the 1st. And now it's about 2.5% below what you'd expect it to be. Same data set going back to 2014. Here's the magnitude of overbidding for each of the 4 counties. And I think we've actually seen this slide already, so I'll just skip over it. Here it is going back to 2014. Here's the delta overbidding reporting of each of the 4 counties. So you can see that all 4 counties right now are about where you'd expect it to be. Contra Costa was doing very poorly compared to the other counties, and Alameda County was doing the best for the bulk of this time, which is a little surprising, at least to me. Santa Clara County came out and outperformed Alameda County for a brief period of time right in 2022. Same data set going back to 2014. So now we're shifting again, and we're looking at overbid for each week. So I'll spend a little time explaining it and going on and automate it. So the dotted dashed line up here, the red dashed line, is the best week we've ever had, which was April 12th, 2022. For those that have followed me for any period of time, know that I used to be saying March 26th. The March 26th best week was for single-family homes, condos and townhouses in San Mateo County and Santa Clara County only. So it was a combined product between only 2 counties. Now we're looking at single-family homes only, which I think is a better benchmark, and we're looking at it for 4 counties. That delayed it from the 26th of March to April 12th. The worst week we ever had was the same, November 30th, 2001, shortly after the World Trade Center. The solid purple line here is the current week, and the dotted line showing here was a year ago, October 18th, 2021. So you got a year ago and now, and the reason I put the blue down arrow on is the market is worse now than it was a year ago. What you're going to start seeing is monthly data going from October 18th to like November 18th, and it's not going to be November 18th. It's going to be 4 or 5 weeks to get to the closest date to October 18th or November 18th that I could. So there you are, November 15th. It's improving. The 20th, the 17th of January, still improving. A huge improvement 7 months ago, 6 months ago, 5 months ago, and now it's sort of a plateau. There's not much change. Now it's worsening. You're down here, worse, and now you're going to enter into basically a plateau. 6 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, I'm not sure. There it is finally. So now you're hardly even seeing the difference in the lines. So the solid lines for the last about 5-6 weeks have been so close together, you really can't tell the difference. What that does is you take the 5 or 6 weeks ago where that really leveled off, add the 4, 5, 6 weeks, so call it 5 weeks of the length of escrow, and the market basically bottomed out about 10 weeks ago, and we're sort of at a plateau from the amount of overbidding. So here is the slide, and you can see again the dotted lines are the oldest, the dashed lines are the second oldest, and the solid lines are all there. You saw them flash up on the screen, but they're so close together you really can't read them. And that's a combination of the market sort of getting plateauing, as well as I've tried to explain before, as you start going closer and closer to the dashed blue line, the worst blue line we've ever seen, it's harder and harder to make the market get worse. Here is the 18th, which didn't show up for some reason in the purple. And then this is actually going forward to the 22nd, which you can't see. Frequency of overbidding, it's showing this is the solid blue line up here is the amount of sellers getting over their asking price. Now the bold gold line is the number of sellers getting below their asking price. You can see that now is above those sellers. It's more common to get less than your asking price than it is to get above. Obviously, they're below 50%, and that's because about 10% of the sellers are getting exactly their asking price. And there's the sellers getting their asking price. This should be that should have been the same data set going back to the 14, and there it is. So here it is going back to 14. Here's the frequency of overbidding. You can see each of the 4 counties going back to 19, and you can see what a significant drop off that was. So that's a pretty rapid drop off that we experienced. Now you can see that we're plateauing. It's interesting that Contra Costa County appears to still be going down fairly significantly. Santa Clara County is clearly leveled off. County is leveled off and going up. County has leveled off. This is Alameda County. The yellow is San Mateo County. The orange is Alameda County. So Alameda County is doing the best and leveled off. San Mateo County is really turned around, and Santa Clara County is turned around in the blue, and Contra Costa is still going down. Same data set going back to 14. So now what you're looking at is the delta frequency of overbidding. So your overbidding is somewhere around 15% less common. So if normally 50% of the sellers are getting overbidding, now you're at 35. And I think the real numbers are probably closer to something like 55, 58% normally get overbid, and now you're 15% lower than that. And this is the data set going back to only 19. Here's sold price. So it's the same concept that we had on overbidding earlier, where the outer lines are my artificial minimums. Then you come into the gray lines 10 percentile. So 80% of the homes are sell between the two gray line numbers. The lighter greens are your 25 and 75%. So 50% of the homes sell between essentially 950,000 and 1.9. So basically $1 million range. Half the homes in the 4 county areas sell in that range. Then the dark green is your median and your dashed line is your average. Here's the same data set going back to 2014. Here is the median sold price for each of the 4 counties. There I've added in the horizontal line so you can see that basically right around April the 1st of 2021 is where prices are back to. Here's the same data set going back to 2014. Here is the number of offers. So you can see we're only at 666 offers. The previous worst year was 912. So that's a dramatic reduction. You can see that we're all basically since May 1st, we've been basically having the worst year out of the last 10 years. And that's a sharp contrast to earlier this year, because basically since before April the 1st, we were having the second best year. So we went from the second best year to the worst. And even though I'm only rating it on the 10, there's actually 13 years up here, and we're the worst out of the last 13 years. And again, by a significant amount. The yellows are honorable mention lows. The blues are the lowest. And this is what we are currently. I mean, we're just blowing through record low number of offers accepted. And that's significant for the real estate industry because we depend on volumes of transaction, not the sale price of individual homes. Now we'll look at some blended data. This is looking at the Santa Clara County and San Mateo County only. You're looking at DUI over time. Back here in the middle of May, you can see how much redder we were. We sort of got very pale through the middle of July. We improved, and now we're starting to go pale again. And you can see that, and that's just DUI for each of the different micro market areas. So you get an idea over time. Here's the current micro market areas plotted out on my geographical map. You can see Santa Clara County has a fair amount of red on the west side. Cupertino Sunnyvale still only has 24 days unsold inventory. Campbell, Santa Clara, 38 days, the city of Santa Clara. San Mateo Coast is only at 38 days. So there are some areas that are still fairly fast moving marketplace. This is the magnitude of overbidding. Most of the areas are no color. There's a couple blue, and there's two blue and 2 pink. Pink being Cupertino Sunnyvale, and also here the North San Mateo County, which means you're over 101.5% of the seller's asking price. Here's the frequency of overbidding. How common is it? Again, you're starting to see some red coming back in. No color is from 33% to 50%. Here's the price. This has nothing to do with the speed of the marketplace. The color is assigned by the median price, which is the middle number. The number to the left is the cheapest 10 percentile. The number to the right is the most expensive 10 percentile for that micro market area. The redder the color, the more above the median, which is red with city. The bluer the color, the more below the median area. Here gives you a summary, your DUI, the magnitude of overbidding, which is second because it changes more than the frequency of overbidding, and then the sold price. So you either start here on your sold price to get an idea of what you can afford and understand what market conditions you want, or if you're trying to buy a bargain and you don't care where you buy, you look for the worst market conditions, which are the expensive areas in San Mateo County, and you go in there and try to get a bargain. Here is the breakdown of the components, and you can see Santa Clara County has a shortage of inventory. We only have 74% of the inventory you'd expect to have at this time of the year. San Mateo County, right over the border, has a 25% surplus. Santa Clara County condos has an 18% surplus. And the base cities, we've talked about it many times, you really can't use that number, which is why it's drawn out. It's an accurate number, but there was a lot of construction of condos making that number sort of misrepresentation. DUI is a much better number for all 4 of them. You can see they're very close together. Mid 40s to 45 to 55. Overbidding is basically very close to 100%. Frequency of overbidding is right around 45%. And here's your appreciation. You can see that we got up to 46%, 17% for condos in the Bay City, which is now down to 0. So the reason this is blue is even though 17% appreciation in 2 years is good, it's not good when you consider that just earlier this year there was 44% appreciation. Clearly went down. Here is the weekly number. numbers somewhat encouraging. You can look at Santa Clara County and see 17%. It's still down, but it's not going down that much, and it's the same level it was in the middle of September. So the rapid decline has appeared to level off. San Mateo County only has 7% appreciation, and this is comparing to the entire 2020 calendar year. So it's a very solid base that doesn't move. So it's not month over month. It's unusual. Here are some raw numbers for you so you can look and see what it is. It's not an apples and apples comparison because this is October data, which isn't available until November the 5th, but it's in a close comparison. So you can see inventory 936 seems to be in line. No real big problem with inventory. DUI 46, not really out of line because you have 41 and 43. But here's where we're out of line. 720 transactions. There's nowhere close to that. 918 is the lowest at this time of the year. And this number will go down lower because typically buyers are dropping off. Frequency of overbidding is, not unreasonable at 100%, but the number of closings is 831. And what you really need to do is compare it to this line of 35, because that's comparing 35. So yes, we were down at 875 and 869, but this number is going to continue to drop, and 831 is significantly lower. Here is an apples and apples comparisons, but it's the month of September. And with that, that's the screen you'll get if you beat me to the Saturday morning live. Here's the URLs to get stuff. And with that, I'll ask people if they have any questions. Does anybody have any questions?
No questions, but great data, Rich. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.